but I remain that we cannot, we still cannot be paid for any work that we do not do sitting in a school building.
So if you're teaching through Zoom online at home,
No, you can't be at home. You have to come to the school building to do that. It's required.
oh,
Wow. Wow.
Yep.
Wow. Well, they've taken a stand, different than what the past 2 years have, or year and a half have been.
They have. I'm
Wow.
just fascinated by what might have prompted that.
Wow.
But yes, for staff meetings. So I'm working 2 jobs, and one is in Burnsville and one is in Casson. And on Thursdays, I drive from Casson to Burnsville for a staff meeting and then drive back after the meeting to Casson for the rest of my work week. So.
Oh my.
I think in some districts, a lot of people are trying, they're like, oh, can I work from home? And they, and then it just sort of starts, well, they're working from home. Why can't I work from home? So,
Mhm.
I think it's like unfortunately, some people are abusing it.
Yeah.
You would not abuse it, Mary Kay. Like, obviously, it makes perfect sense for you to, but.
To be honest, I heard about this new rule after the catalog was printed, and I had agreed to do an online story time. And I said, I'm happy to continue to do the story time, but I will do it from where I am, or you'll have to find somebody else to do it. And of course, nobody wants to be teaching an extra evening. And so I'm doing it from where I am. But now, because we have a staff member who left us, I took on 2 of her classes on that same day, figuring, okay, I'll just drive home Wednesdays. I'll work at Burnsville for a day and I'll drive back. And I took 5 days of vacation ahead from my other job to do that. So I'm only doing it till Christmas vacation. And then Sarah's going to do it.
yay. Well, I want to give a quick shout out to Red Hot Trivia Peppers there, also known fondly to us as Eve Clark. Hi, Eve. We can only imagine where that name came from.
I'll tell you really briefly, during COVID, my husband's school did a trivia night periodically to kind of keep staff engaged. And now, embarrassingly, I forgot about that. It's my name whenever I log on now.
But we love it. It is just, I think it wins the award for the most creative name on Zoom for 2021. So kudos to you.
Otherwise, my name is Eve, for those of you I haven't met.
And Eve, are you in a school district?
Oops, I'm in Bloomington for my sixth year teaching parent ed ECFE.
Fabulous. Fabulous. Bloomington. That's great.
Yeah.
So how are you? I have actually I'm gonna barge in. I've got a question to start the group off, but I also let's see, what is today? Today's the 10th. Should we have one more meeting next week? Are we all good with that? I mean, before we break for Christmas and all of that? Okay. Well, I have an early holiday gift for you. I am on Twitter, and from following one person to another person to another person, there is a woman named Dana Susskind who has just written a book called Parent Nation. And she is a neuroscientist out of the University of Chicago, and is a strong parent advocate. And so the person that I follow, who has been sort of talking up Parent Nation, put a thing about the release of the book. I don't think it's going to even be in print until maybe May or something. Anyway, I just responded and I said, do you need anybody to review it? And I included my bio link, and they contacted me, and immediately, as I'm wont to do, we all became fast friends. And and so this Dana Suskind, who she's so grateful for me writing a review, because I'll write it like a formal academic review for academic journals, and then I'll write a more practical, casual kind of thing, and said that they could use it however they wanted to and excerpt it. Anyway, she's offering copies of the book. And they have some sort of a funder who has generously donated money to give out copies of the book to people. And she said, since you're doing this, like, I can gift copies of the book. Do you know of anybody who would be interested? And I'm going, are you effing kidding me? I'm like, I've got a whole state of people who would be interested. So I'm starting with you, and we're working out kind of the logistics, but I thought, what a wonderful way of rewarding, or not, just acknowledging all the incredibly hard work. And I know that a lot of you have libraries, like parent book libraries and everything. Again, I haven't seen the book. I can give you, as we're here, I can find a little blurb about it. But it is right down our alley. I mean, my understanding is that the book talks about the importance of parenting, and especially the importance of supporting parents and providing programs and resources and, that kind of thing. So, and again, it's called Parent Nation, and the author's name is Dana Suskind, PhD. And so I'm thinking, so is this something that you would be interested in having a copy of and having access? Terrific. So I'm thinking what I might do is set up like a Google form just to make it easy. And then and then you could put in your contact information, like where you want the book to be sent. And then I can just easily give Dana and her people in Chicago the spreadsheet. And because I said, well, anyway, so happy holidays. Resources for you, a book for you, and a book for you. So there's that. So yeah, and then I may do it on Friends of Family Education. I'm just, I just don't want to wear out my welcome like early on and say, here's a list of 1,000 people. So I think they may, I don't know what their upper bound is, right? But anyway, but I'll start with my friends. Start with you guys. Does anybody have anything that you want to announce or ask to the group? Because again, I do have one. I do have an ask or just a topic that I was actually thinking this would brand the segment called Hit Me With Your Best Shot. Because I was asked to do a talk for parents, and I could easily do it, but I thought, what the hell, I'm gonna go to my group and I'm gonna ask them, when they teach this topic, what are the high points that really seem to resonate with parents? So that's where I'm going to go. And I thought, I'm sure there's lots of topics like this that you all have as well, that maybe, we'll just, if there's these kind of things that come up. Anyway, so we'll get to that. But right now I want to come back to you guys. What do you have? What questions, what announcements, anything like that to get us started?
I have one announcement. Cambridge Isani Schools, there's 2 parent educators. I'm one of 2, and we do other tasks as well. I do screening, coordinate it, and I do outreach. And my cohort is down in Isanti, and the primary school there. She does all the parent ed down there most of the time. And she also helps the coordinating of the early childhood school readiness program down there, and she does stuff for our program as far as helping grant writing. And so we're both salaried, and we're just do whatever we need to do, and those are the things that she does. Grant writing, she'll put stuff on on Instagram. She'll put it out on Facebook for us as well. And she and her family are moving to Texas, and we don't have all the details, but her husband's going now, and he has a month to make sure that's what they want to do. And then so we might have a position coming up this spring, which is a full-time position. Probably 50% is parent ed and then 50% of other stuff. I don't know what it's going to look like when she leaves, if she's doing a leave of absence or if she's going to leave. And I don't know, we don't know all the details yet. Anyway, just letting people know, Cambridge Isani schools will probably be looking for some parent ed hours, possibly even a full-time salary position, depending on how they ring it in the next couple months. So just wanting that to get out there. Thank you.
Britta,
Yes.
Britta, whoever can work with you is blessed.
Oh, no, you're so sweet, Eugene.
I really mean that.
Oh, well, you're kind. Anyway,
And Greta, I'm sorry, you might have said it and I missed it. About when do you think this might happen?
probably, well, probably February or February, March.
Mhm.
And then in next year, starting full, whatever that position looks like, it'll be full on. So I told her about the Minnesota, the university students. There's maybe some people that would want to come part-time parent ed this spring, maybe, and then keep coming and doing stuff. I'm not sure, but if
Yeah.
anybody knows or hears of people looking, it looks like there's a few others that are out there on the table right now that have been put out too. So there's some transitions going on in ECFE. I find that fascinating when it comes in like sets of 3 or 4 or 5,
Yep.
and then long-term subs like Naomi's, which makes me wonder, how are you feeling?
I think I have 2 potential applicants that have put in for it. I've had a lot of people reach out to me. I'm
Yay.
really, really hopeful.
Well, and the good news, additional good news, is that we have the largest student teaching group that the U of M has ever had. 25 students are doing student teaching this spring. So yes. So, and I think most of you know, but Shannon Rader is pretty much easing into becoming the diva and taking over the program, which is wonderful. And Maggie, and I only know Maggie Maggie Dupre DeYoung, Beaupre DeYoung. So she was with Minneapolis, if any of you know Maggie. She also worked at MDE. So she is our full-time parenting education licensed person advisor for students. And then we are in the process, Shannon and I are on the hiring committee. We're hiring a full-time, what they're calling an assistant teaching professor. So unfortunately, they're not hiring at this point a tenure track position that will focus on the program, but the strong intention is that this person who will teach probably 6 classes a year would be pretty much devoted into the parent ed program for at least half their load, and would be focusing on teaching the parent-child relations course, the parent-child interactions course, and especially really digging into diversity and diverse families and immigrant families and culture and all of that. So yeah, so I just feel, how it's just like you give up your child and you want your child to be in good hands, right? I feel very, very, very confident that as we transition away from the university, that the program will be as strong. We have an incredibly supportive department head, so that's also great. So we have good infrastructure heading up.
Well, Susan, when are those student teaching placements going out? Because I was approached last year and we had a room cap and we could not have an additional individual in our classroom. So when do those go out? Just because I'm assuming I'll be approached again this year. And I would have had one last year if not for that requirement. So just kind of so I can wrap my head around it. Like, is it like late March? Oh, Greta's got one already. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So they may be
So,
coming out now. Okay.
yeah.
For
Yeah.
when's the start date, Greta? You don't know yet.
Well, it's interesting because the way it's working for the student is that she has to go to several districts and then she has
Ah.
to piece a bunch of stuff together because she's north of me too. So she's north of Hinckley. That's the word I was looking for. Hinckley. So I don't know everybody's. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, I have to tell you, like, I haven't really, like, if I have a student teacher, I would be like, oh, everything's kind of up here. You know what I mean? Like when you've been doing this for 10 years, you don't really have a lesson plan anymore. I might have an article or a new picture or a graph or a chart or a video, but I'm like, oh boy. Because when I was approached last spring, I was like, shoot, I gotta like look organized and like look like I'm working from a plan. Because I have on my wall, keep calm and pretend it's on the lesson plan. So that's not going to work for a student teacher. So anyway, I was just thinking, I'm like, ooh, I need to get myself a little organized. But anyway, take some of what's up here and put it down on paper.
One of my colleagues is in the student teaching class this spring, and she started this past week with her student teaching position. And then one of my colleagues is going to be hosting one of the student teachers, and her person is starting, I think on Thursday next week is their first like come and observe day. So I was supposed to have one, but maternity leave trumped it, so I don't.
Actually, this from some of the things that I'm seeing you ask and listening to this, one of the things Maggie and I had this wonderful conversation about mentorship. And, she was saying that sometimes the students in the program are a little reluctant to join our meeting at noon, right? Because they're like, well, I'm a student and I have anything to add. And I'm going, are you kidding? We're all on this developmental trajectory, right? And we always welcome lurkers, right? I mean, if people want to listen, I said they can also like give us a topic and then we can talk about it during our thing and then they can watch the video or whatever. And but then we were talking about sort of mentoring because we're also thinking of maybe tapping into some professionals who are in the field to sort of be people that students can touch base with. So not just their student teaching experience, but, as they maybe in that first year experience or whatever. But I said, anyway, so I mean, I was very protective of your all professional time. I said, well, let's think about how much like incentives for this, like what's in it for them and things. But I think that this general idea of mentorship is really, really good for the field. And, but as you guys are pointing out, the other good thing about it isn't just like, what does this, like, how can we help the student learn, but really, what does this mean for us in terms of how do we mentor? How do we provide good professional development? I've had a TA this semester in my undergraduate course, and I asked her to just give me a little thing at the end about what she's learned about teaching. Well, I was pretty, it's just like, that's it. There's so much here. But I realized that, that you have to also have trained eyes and a trained perspective on teaching to know what you're looking for. Because I came back to her then and I said, well, how about assessment, student assessment, or the delivery of content or teaching methods, or the flow of, all sort of we were talking about a few weeks ago, I think Naomi was talking about this, was the sort of a developmental curriculum, right? And all of that. And I mean, the stuff that makes us and the stuff that makes our expertise so good that it kind of can be hard to articulate it when somebody is watching us, right? And then we kind of blow them away. And what they take from it is this thing, but we're thinking, what about this? And what about this? And what about this? You know, anyway, so I think that's a great conversation about also supporting us as mentors. And yeah, and frankly, Ellen, you know, if somebody walks in and my house is messy, well, they're just going to have to deal with it, right? So anyway. Yeah.
And also kind of shows them like, yeah, you might feel like you have to have those notes. You have to have a script. You have to be ready for any direction that it can turn. But eventually, after you've done it enough times, you feel confident you don't need that script. You know what I mean? So it kind of shows them the progression of, yes, you need this, to nope, and you don't really need it anymore.
Yeah.
But oh, the house is going to be messy. For any of my potential student teachers, just watch out.
Susan, is the U of M the last ECF or the last parent education preparation program in the Twin Cities?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think Concordia is still offering classes, and
I know
then
St. Kate stopped a long time ago.
yeah, and it's not necessarily in the Twin Cities, but I think St. Cloud is still doing their program. I think it's maybe more residential versus ours being online. And usually I saw your question before, but I thought I am not going on tape talking about our program is. I would say, however, writing a lot about parenting education from a national and global perspective is that the fact that Minnesota still is the only state that offers a state sanctioned teacher's license, you know, that, you know, we still have that sort of gold standard in our thing. That said, there is just so much to understand about the process of being a good parenting educator that, quite honestly, I don't think you need to be licensed. Oh, did I say that on tape? You know, and so I think the structure of the license and certainly the program we offer at Minnesota is great. And the thing about the program at Minnesota and the teacher license that is far different than the others is there is such a focus on pedagogy. There is such a focus on understanding different learners and assessment and all of that. I think sometimes to the frustration of students who are really eager for more content and current research on stuff, right? And whereas in other possible paraprofessional or professional training programs, they may lean a little heavier on the content piece and less on the practice. And so, you know, as the conversations we have here are pretty much about practice and then sharing resources on the content. And so I would always defend that if you are developing teachers, that it's got to be the whole 9 yards, right? It's got to be not just the content, but it has to really be on facilitating this practice and the way we do our practice and our own, you know, what we do for ourselves and the technology integration and working with administrators and unions and all of that. So it's a long way around, but yes, I think what we do is fabulous in this state and far above what a lot of other programs are doing. But I would never say that anybody's not doing it. As long as you're doing something that is supporting professionals to work with parents, good for you. And keep doing it.
I had to post, or I chose to post yesterday that I had been, I'd accepted the job with the Burnville-Egan-Savage district, and I had to explain to my out-of-state friends exactly what it is that we do, and that I found that challenging because it's not something you can just put it into a little paragraph.
Yep.
Sarah, I've been a parent educator for 6 years and I still have to explain to my husband what I do.
Well, you'll have to drag him to a class or send him to someone else's class.
My home district doesn't offer baby classes. It's so sad.
Oh,
They offer birth to kindergarten classes at a time your husband could go.
Well, we're gonna definitely do toddler classes when the kids get to the age that we can do toddler classes, but I am gonna be seeking out a different district to do
Naomi,
EC. And-
you can join my baby class via Zoom.
Oh, that's good to know.
It's not
I
the
am gonna,
greatest, but
uh,
it's better than nothing.
I'm definitely gonna do AMA just to like, I just want to satisfy my curiosity.
yeah.
Just so curious what AMA's all about. All my parents come from AMA, and so I'm just like, well, now's the time. We're gonna
Yeah.
check it out and see see what's going on.
I think one of my favorite days was sending my twins and my husband to class that one of the two other of my colleagues taught. And my husband came home and he's reading to me from this handout going, "This is so great what Jordan taught us." And I wrote the handout. and I said, I went into work and I said, "Thank God, Jordan, that he actually listened when you said it."
So while I was in school for parent ed, my youngest was a toddler. And so every other Friday, my husband was off. So every other Friday, I would go do homework and he would take her to our mixed ages class. And so I think that was really awesome for him to just see like, this is what my wife wants to do. And I don't know, he really enjoyed it too. Plus at that time, it was like the third kid. All right, I've heard all this stuff as a parent, how many times? You go and get some info too, right?
I've got a question that's kind of been asked here and there and around the block, but it's about keeping parent info in your brain straight, and you have to take notes. And if you don't, Greta's like, what
Do you
I've
mean
done,
about the individual parents, not about parenting or anything like that, but
No,
like, this is Carol, this is Mike,
yes, this is Carol. Carol's married to so-and-so. If I know the jobs, I will do that. Oh, mop-headed teenager from a snow day
Oh,
wandering
sorry.
behind me. Sorry, I turned my camera on. I didn't tell him. But I'm just, my classes are bigger this year, which is fine. And I don't know if I'm COVID fog or brain or whatever, but parents will share something, right, in class. My father is my father's getting his prostate out and then he's doing chemo. Like sometimes you know how it is, it's mentioned and then I forget. And then 2 weeks later, someone else in the class remembers because, right, they only have the parents in the class to think about, where I have like 50 parents. I'm like, "Oh, hey, how was your dad's surgery?" And I'm like, "Oh, Ellen, you idiot, you didn't write that down." And I don't want to take notes in class. I'm having a terrible time remembering those little details. And if they tell me in parent ed time and parent child time at 8:45, and I don't get to sit at my desk until 12:30, and I had a class in between, aside from like wearing an investigator's notebook on my neck and be like, "Hang on, I'm going to write that down." I don't know what my problem is. I can't remember.
So, well, I do think it's a little bit of that. Like, I just think we're in a different realm a little bit, Ellen. I mean, I still feel like that trauma is a little bit there. And I mean, you know what I mean? And we do, and we're a little hyper vigilant with our family, so it's a little different. I have made sure, and I said, like you right now, honestly, friends, I wanted to be part of this group so bad. I have class until like whatever, 12, so it's hard. But I took the, like, on Google Docs, you can do like your own like weekly calendar type of thing to but I changed that into a notes. And so I have that right on there. So as soon as class is over, in between classes, if I can immediately put a note in. So so I was literally doing that while I was still listening to you guys, because if I don't do it immediately, then those things go away. So, and then the other thing that I've been doing too on there is like, I will put like, if we talked about, like, let's say we talked about like I talk to a family about help me grow or like a referral of some sort, then I put that like in red. So then it's more like of a visual to go, oh, that's right, we did that. And so then I review that before every class, before the next class. Like Friday morning, I will look at last Friday's notes. But it is. I just feel you, friend. I'm right there. I'm just right there with you. It's so tricky, but it's helped. That's helped me.
Yeah, and I do the same thing. So like I'll write down, follow up with so-and-so on, potty training, follow up with, but then there's also just those little things that I feel like I'm missing, maybe it's just my own, like, wanting to be as, focused and attentive as I can be.
Yeah.
It's
I
just
think we're
really,
all like that. I think we all want to do that, but I will tell you, it's okay to let go of some of
yeah,
that. And I also feel like our groups, I think it's awesome that when we do a group, that they can follow up, that they do
yeah,
the follow up
that's true.
instead of us. So I'm not the one, it's not, it doesn't always have to be about me. It's okay for
Mhm.
them to do that follow up. It's okay I think it's so important for that other person to be like, oh my gosh, so and so. I know my parent ed cares about me because we care about them. I care about you. But then another person in class talks about it. I didn't even know that lady knew my name and she knew that my husband had surgery last week or whatever. I mean, those are those really special connections that, we need. We need that.
That is such a good point, Sarah. I shoulder a lot of that
Yep.
responsibility. Like I'm supposed to remember this stuff and I forgot and I'm such an idiot, so.
Ellen, what about, okay, so first of all, totally agree. And then here's another complicating factor is when you have the one person who's in 3 of your classes and you've addressed it here, do you address it in the next class? Do you address it in the next? Do you keep asking, and which class did they bring it toileting
Yeah.
up in? And
Did we talk about this in your class on Tuesday? We did. Okay, we did it. Okay. And they're like,
yeah.
and they're really good. And I just say, sorry, guys, I have 11 classes. Like I sometimes get this jumbled up. And then they're like, you have 11 classes? Yeah. I'm like, yeah, I know. Like I got a lot going on. So sometimes it humanizes us, but yes, Greta, it is such a thing.
Tricky. But here's a thought. I haven't done this. I'm not giving you from like a repertoire of what I've done, but what if there was a way to take what happens in class and have someone who likes to take notes or something, and they write down the details, say, oh, let's note that. Let's get back to that next time or something, so that you don't have to commit it here and that the group will attend to it. Like Sarah was saying, if the group is going to become a part in gel, maybe that would be a step in bringing that group together and harmonizing a little. I don't know, just
Like a secretary, like a class secretary.
Yeah, because then
Yeah,
that could take some of those off that happen in class, so that when it happens in your offline meetings with people, during interaction time, you can then have more space, and at least be space in my head. I don't know, just a thought.
I love that. And then like have each class has a pretty notebook and a really nice writing pen, colorful pen. And so
it
it's like,
stays there. It's just
it's
what you do in class. It's not like, it's going out to the world. But it's a really special maybe journal of the class.
Yeah.
In together.
Listen, Sarah, you know the power of a good rolling pen. Am I not wrong? Like a pretty pen, or just give them like a packet of pretty flares and be like, here, you choose the color. Yeah. I love that, Greta. That is so good. And I can just frame it as there's a lot of stuff going on. And I just feel like it would really be helpful if we could just keep this notebook and kind of be able to circle back. And yeah.
And our intentions are to know and to follow up. But sometimes with everything that's going on, we know there's a lot of busyness. Families with children and early child have so much going on in their world. So in this time, we want to attend to things, but how can we do that better? Because I'm feeling incompetent. I'm straightforward. These gray hairs mean something. No, but that's not everybody. Anyway.
And trust me, there's an introvert in your group who would love to have that assignment so that they don't have to talk.
Ooh, Mary. Ding, 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 ding. That's really good.
It's kind of like writing it on the board. Like it's kind of like the parking lot, like put it in the parking lot, but instead of on the board, and then you have to take a picture or transfer it, it's already written down in a private place. You don't want to leave up on the board you know, something, yeah, especially my space, which is used for more than just parent ed. So crowdsourcing at its finest. You guys are awesome. Thank you.
Or what I should have said, or a raging extrovert who talks too much, who can use that as a way to shut the heck up more.
Oh my gosh, my whole Thursday group should be taking notes then.
That's funny. Oh my goodness. Or someone who does is yeah, I mean, you could find many reasons why someone might want to do that. Those are two good reasons.
So can I ask my crowdsourcing question? This is an easy one. This won't challenge you, but I've been asked by a PTA, not a PTA, by, I don't know, parent group at a school, to one of the topics is on parent self-care. And there is so much that I could say. And of course, I don't want to just, I want to facilitate the discussion. But in the few minutes that I would take to see the discussion, I want to hit on those areas of parent self-care that you have found really resonate with people. So what are they?
I have a baby class right now, and on one of the first weeks, I had kind of asked, casually to parents, like, oh, what did you do before you were a stay-at-home parent? Because they're all stay-at-home moms right now. I have one working mom from home. But anyways, one of my moms is like, oh, I'm a coach for self-care and fitness and all this stuff. And I was like, tell me more. And she shared what she does. And I actually brought her in as a guest speaker for all of my classes. And what I like that she talks about is I kind of brought her in blind and was like, let's see how this goes. Hopefully it's good information. But what I like that she talks about is she talks about a little bit about time management. When are you at your best? And when are you at your worst? Are you the nap time hustler parent? Are you the early morning wake up so you can fill your cup before your kids wake up? Or are you the late night owl who wants to stay up and do self-care at the end of the day to recharge before you go to bed? And so she talks a little bit about that and trying to optimize your own personal groove. She also talks about the sequence of self-care being, are you getting enough sleep, first of all? Because you can't do self-care or any of those things that we think of as self-care if you're not getting enough sleep. And then I'm going to blank on what her second one is, but it's sleep, support. Oh, that was the other one. Do you have a support system? Who's your support system? And then at that point, are you eating? Are you actually sitting down and having a meal, or are you finishing the food on your toddler's plate? Because self-care is actually sitting down and eating your own food, not just your kids' leftover food. And then she talks about having that healthy mindset and getting some of that personal time. And then physical movement is her last one. And she really looks at it as it's this progression, and self-care is a small thing for some people. It's 5 minutes. And for other people, you might have the support system to get half an hour once a day. You might have someone in your life that you can rely on to watch your kids so you can do self-care, but that's not reality for everybody. And so really thinking about, and the words that she uses is, this is a season of life. This is a season that you're in for your parenting, and it changes. It's not going to stay this way forever. And I just really like the way that she maps it out for parents. And too, coming in as a parent of an infant and toddler, so she's got 2 kids at home. She's very real about what it looks like for her personally. So
I get real fired up about this because this is a real buzzword, and a self-care, it's self-care, take time for self-care. Well, if you're tired and you're a single parent and you work a full-time job and you don't have a social network to help you with childcare, you just can't do it. And I got this from a mom of mine that I do some parent coaching with. And she's just like, I have no time. So I talked to her about frequency rather than duration, and to be mindful. Like when you have that bowl of ice cream at night, you sit down and you take a couple deep breaths and you say, I made it through another day. I got to work. I parented my daughter. I didn't get all the dishes done, but that's okay. They'll be there tomorrow. And now I'm going to treat myself to this bowl of ice cream. So really being mindful in that moment. But I think what blew me away, Brene Brown, yeah, I know you guys are so sick of me talking about Brene Brown, but she has an episode of the Nagoski sisters, and she talks about the stress cycle, and they wrote a book called Burnout. And this is something they said in the book, and this just blew me out of the water. Self-care is the fallout shelter you build in your basement, because apparently it's your job to protect yourself from nuclear war. So we talk about self-care, we talk about sleep and stress and get activity, but that's not going to work if you live in a household where you're the only person who prioritizes your well-being. So if my new moms, I'm like, you got to take time for self-care. But if you have a partner who doesn't give you that space, what good is it? Like, you can't do it yourself. It requires everyone in the household agreeing that your 8 hours of sleep is a priority. And we're going to cordon off that time and space to protect it so that you can have that time. Self-care requires a bubble of protection so other people who value your well-being at least as highly as you do are on board. So that's where I'm like, you cannot do self-care by yourself. You have to have other people in your corner to help you do self-care. Does that, and when I thought about it that way, I was like, yeah, what good is trying to do a night out when you can't find a reliable babysitter? You know, so I thought that was super interesting. Yes, I will put that in. I just put that,
Oh, okay.
but it's kind of a messy quote. I think I pulled it from the transcript, but it's from the book Burnout.
Okay, thanks.
So
But if
Ellen,
yeah, go ahead.
so it's interesting, like one of the parents in my class would talk about self-care, and this mother said, so I encourage them to communicate with their spouse and the family members about the self-care. And then she said she talked to her family, and their family, her children and her spouse all say, what? You need less of that. That is, she said, here now I am. This is where I.
No, I think you're right. I think that it's the sort of asking is that for some parents, the people that they ask make a huge difference. So that because there's so much relational dynamic and role stuff that parents end up doing and taking on and all of that, that then to disrupt that process and say to your spouse or say to your kids or say to a parent or your mother-in-law or whoever's in your sort of close network, I need help, can be so hard. It is so incredibly hard, but it might be easier to listen to somebody else and find the name of a babysitter or, sort of those neutral sources of help. Something like that. It's just, I think we need to honor and respect those internal dynamics that parents are part of. I mean, this is the thing, like with women who are abused, right? The easy thing is, we'll just leave the guy. Well, of course it's not that easy, right? And so doing that ask to closer family members that are part of that system, that have built up those dynamics, that have made the parent have to create their own bomb shelter, right? Can just seem like an unscalable wall or a level of stress that just seems added on to, whatever. And so I think in our conversation about self-care is just acknowledging that there are a lot of different types of resources. There's a lot of different types of supports, and maybe that identification of what do you need and what would feel safe or easier, maybe prioritize what seems easier to get. Yeah.
Susan, I so resonant with you when you said like abused woman, will things that just happen if she left the guy. I mean, she will attract another person to abuse her, right? In different patterns, maybe. So the thing is, I think like even self-care, I view it as a discipline, self-discipline. So it is also related to the parents' psychological, like a status, because many of them, they do not give themselves permission to care for themselves. They feel guilty, or they feel like they have to ask permission from their spouse to do that, right? So psychologically, there's something there in their own mind need to make change. And even they make that change in order to make the pattern, because self-care is ongoing. We talk about self-care, the difference between self-care and self-sacrifice and self-indulgence. So self-care is a need to meet the needs, and it is an everyday, ongoing thing. But how do we want to build a pattern? It is a self-discipline. That is something yes, that is something I bring to my class. It's hard. We do make effort to continue our self-care.
If we're able to convey to them the value of that too. I know in my dad's classes, sometimes when I talk about self-care, I can just see their eyes glaze over because of what they're looking at. And I say, here's the deal. If you don't take care of yourself, it's like taking one of your best tools and putting it in the backyard to lay in the rain for a while and watching it rust. If you believe your entire reality is to care for that child, mom, dad, or whatever, then you need to take care of you to some extent to do that. And I also, at the beginning of the pandemic and even before that, I live in a culture that kind of believes fellowship can't happen without alcohol. And I readily share that I'm an adult child of an alcoholic. I don't struggle with alcohol myself, but I look around and think to myself, oh, if the basic question during the pandemic is it wine o'clock yet? Then I should be very careful driving on the roads because of the possibility that there are a lot of people who are imbibing more than is helpful. And so I just really am sensitive to that being one of the basic, of course, I'm not as sensitive to ice cream at night, Helen. It's like that doesn't seem to endanger others, but just really concerned about that as kind of a big piece in some conversations about this. So.
Would you ever like branch it off into what is surviving and what is thriving kind of talk at all? The idea of that, or the idea of a doctor is often trained to look at what's wrong with the system, but what if we stop and start thinking about what is right with the system and how do we accentuate and bring forth more thriving? I don't know, I was just listening to On Being with Krista Trippett, and she was interviewing the federal general.
The Surgeon General?
Surgeon General.
Yeah, the vectors, yeah.
They just did an interview, and it was really fascinating to hear them talk about it from that perspective, this idea of thriving, and then what are the components of that, and the interconnectedness of our body and our mind and our emotions, and with all of the medicine, all of the research that's coming forth now, that's just saying how well integrated it is and how plus the plasticity of it. So what we choose to do each day and the pieces of that, how they build up, how they build us up or tear us down. I don't know. It just feels like self-care fits in that so nicely to then, so it's not just I don't know. It's a biggie and it's very important, but I think I've experienced what some of you have made reference to, they kind of gloss over sometimes. It's like, oh, exercise, eat right, get some sleep. And so to make it hit home a little bit more, I think, Ellen.
And this is exactly why I wanted to bring the question to you all, because there's so much, it's that glossing over, right? And but we also know, whether it's an analogy, whether it's a leader in the class that people really listen to, whether it's a story that somebody tells, right? those powerful moments that really break through the, I've heard of this all before kind of stuff. And yeah, because I think that, you know, I've just seen such huge changes with such simple things that a lot of times we don't even expect, you know, or, you know, as you're talking about the rusty tool, I think it's a fabulous analogy, because when I always think of this, it's just like that goddamn analogy about putting the air mask on in a plane before you put it on your kid. It's just like, why does that work so well? You know, because it's just such a practical thing that, you know, is like, well, of course that makes sense, right? That it's like the rusty tool. If the tool doesn't work anymore, well, then whatever you're needing the tool for is just not going to be effective anyway. But I totally hear you, Greta. I mean, it's like, I think that it's the challenges, and this almost too comes full circle with our conversation about expertise and the time that we are doing what we do, is that if anything, like topics are no longer new to us. And maybe when we revisit them, there's a certain amount of trepidation, because it's like, this is going to sound really stale. Or if this is boring to me, I can just imagine how boring it is, you know, to them. So all of these ideas I really, really appreciate, and even having the conversation about this. And I have to do this right away. But, you know, it's just so let me ask you this, and we have a couple minutes left. How do you practice self-care? What does self-care mean to you as we come to the end of our extended COVID, yet one more variant season?
For me, I think oops, sorry.
Answer the doorbell.
Just as I unmuted. I think something that I picked up previously was understanding whether a person was an introvert or an extrovert, and figuring out that if they're an extrovert, what they need to refill their bucket is being around some other people. If they're an introvert, it's being on their own to, you know, just chill, do whatever it is that makes them happy. But understanding the extrovert introvert part is vital.
Thanks, Sarah.
One of the things I did during the pandemic was I made an appointment with 3 or 4 good girlfriends to meet once a month. And the appointment wasn't sacrosanct in terms of it had to be at that time. It was as much a reminder to connect. Like if something came up, I had to do a meeting and that people couldn't do it at another time, then we would just agree to find another time. But we would talk for about an hour and we would schedule it into our stuff. And it was a lifeline for me during the pandemic, because I was really at home. And by the way, the community of practice, this is the topic of the community of practice that's happening in a few moments, in case you don't know that. And if anyone wants the link to it, I'm happy to share it, or somebody else can share it. One of the other things I told the dads, I used to do a Saturday morning dads class, and I remember sometimes seeing guys whose eyes were like 2 burnt holes in a blanket. And I would say, hey, the rule is that you have to be physically present for ECFE, but there's a room next door where we do sleeping for our toddlers. And if you want to go there and take a nap and have us wake you up at the end of parent ed, we will do that.
Yeah, as long as you have the link, Naomi, you can join.
Is this through who is
Someone shared it.
MD.
Okay.
Mhm. Yep.
Great. Yeah, if anybody wants to share that back out with the listserv too, I mean, about the community of practice and their meetings and the schedule or whatever. You know, if there's anything we learn about online stuff, is that you have to repeat it in 15 different places before you're sure that people are actually even seeing it. So
There it is.
cool. Well, thank you, everybody. This has been super, super helpful. to me, and it's a great conversation. And just hearing too, I'm with you, Ellen, my self-care is just not even opening my computer for an entire day, unless I'm using it to stream a movie or a TV show or something like that, but no email. So no, this is really, really helpful. Well, thanks everybody. So we'll be back next week, which probably will be our last meeting before the new year. And then I don't know, whatever that first Friday is afterward. Anyway, so I hope the snow is not horrible for you, or it's lovely for you, however your perspective of snow is, and that you have a great, yes, and Red Hot Trivia Peppers, please come back and join us all the time, and tell everybody in Bloomington we're thinking of them and we love them and our hearts are warm for them. So, okay, everyone, thank you all. Have a great weekend.